An effort to ensure more civilian oversight of the San Diego Police Department has died in the City Council. Why activists aren't happy with the existing Community Review Board.
The fires are getting bigger. That's very clear to see. You do not have to look too hard to recognize that fires are getting bigger.
A state of emergency in California, the reality for firefighters working to protect lives and homes.
Thinking, well, how are we going to care for the baby financially? How are we going to afford daycare? It was just too much.
A baby boom or bust, the housing cost that may be shaping family planning in the Golden State. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A ballot proposal to overhaul civilian oversight of the San Diego Police Department died today. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says activists are frustrated.
The group Women Occupy San Diego says the existing Community Review Board on police practices lacks independence. Their proposed ballot initiative would have created a new commission that could conduct independent investigations into complaints of officer misconduct. But it failed at the City Council because no majority supported starting talks with the police officers union. Councilman Scott Sherman says it was rushed.
To get to a ballot coming up this November, there's no way we can get through this process. We can have a conversation about the next election in a couple of years, but I don't see how we get through it today, and that's why I can't support the motion on the floor.
Now, the reform measure first went to a City Council committee back in April. Supporters say there was plenty of time for council members to move their proposal forward. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Today, members of the Racial Justice Coalition walked into the San Diego mayor's office demanding a ban on chokeholds. KPBS reporter Jade Hyman was there. And we want to warn you, some viewers may find some of the following footage disturbing.
You cannot touch me. You cannot touch me.
Here in San Diego, chokeholds like this are banned, but a similar use of force called a carotid restraint is allowed, and these groups want to see it banned too.
Those chokeholds kill. They are very lethal. I have lost 2 friends through these so-called chokeholds.
Studies have shown that this is a very dangerous technique to use in restraining an individual.
The Racial Justice Coalition says when you apply pressure to the neck, death can occur within 2 to 3 minutes.
We've had doctors testify this at the Community Review Board meeting on police practices. We've had doctors reach out to the police chief and the mayor. We're not getting any ground.
And they feel the use of force is disproportionately used in communities of color.
These communities of color are over-policed as it is. So that means that people of color, black and brown, are going to have more encounters with law enforcement each and every day.
While there's a push for change, Desiree Smith says her son was traumatized after being put in a chokehold by an officer at school.
And my son, he had a hard time swallowing. He had a hard time sleeping. He had a hard time concentrating for months.
So with the names of more than 31,000 people from across the country on a petition, the coalition walked into Mayor Kevin Faulconer's office asking that all forms of a chokehold be banned.
This is a prime opportunity for the mayor to listen to the voice of the people.
The hope for them is that their request makes it onto the City Council agenda for a vote. Jade Hindman, KPBS News.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Faulconer was unavailable for a comment today. The San Diego Police Department says they're reviewing the request and will formally respond within 30 days. A San Diego judge says Councilwoman Lori Zapf can proceed with her District 2 re-election campaign. The Union Tribune reports the judge found no merit in a legal challenge based on term limits. That challenge claimed that Zapf could not run again because she's already served 2 terms in 2 different districts because of redistricting. But the judge says not letting her run would violate the city charter. The challenger, Brian Pease, says he will appeal. Pease finished 3rd in the June primary. A city audit has revealed thousands of customers in San Diego have been overbilled for water. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tragesser tells us how to identify if your bill is incorrect and how to get it fixed.
The audit was in response to reports of unusually high water bills earlier this year. It found that out of about 1.3 million customers, 2,750 had bills that needed to be corrected.
They have a right to be upset.
City Auditor Eduardo Luna said his office sent a list of customers with incorrect bills to the Public Utilities Department, but does not know what the department will do with it. He said even though less than 1% of the bills were wrong, anyone who pays for water expects their bills to be correct.
So even if you do get overcharged by $5, you feel that it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel good. You want to ensure that you're being charged for the water that's being consumed.
City spokeswoman Katie Keach said in an email to KPBS that all customers who had incorrect bills should have received a corrected bill. For the most part, those customers who complained directly to the Public Utilities Department were informed by staff that they would receive a corrected bill, she said. Claire Tragesser, KPBS News.
If you have a question or concern about your water bill, you can contact the city at 619-515-3500 or customer care at sandiego.gov. At least 6 people have been killed in the car fire that continues to rage through the city of Redding in Northern California. More than 150 square miles have burned and more than 1,000 structures have been destroyed. The fire is just 20% contained. Some evacuation orders were lifted this morning, but thousands of residents remain displaced, and that could be the case for some time.
So much damage has been done in portions of the west side of Redding to power lines and infrastructure that's all going to take some time to render those areas safe, and then PG&E and other utilities coming in to quickly put power poles and electric service back in place.
Fire officials say a high-pressure system moving out will allow crews to begin employing more aircrafts in the area. But they say the change in wind could result in more unpredictable fire behavior. 2 fires that burned in San Diego County over the weekend are largely contained. A CAL FIRE spokesperson talked with KPBS about local response and the major fires burning in California.
First, we had the Pasquale fire that broke out late last week. It grew to about 365 acres. I think that's exactly what it grew to, 365 acres. And of course, we were able to stop the forward spread early into the evening, even before the sun went down. We also had the rock fire that broke out a couple days later over in Fallbrook, and again, because of the aggressive initial attack that was displayed by the fire agencies, the responding agencies for that incident, we were able to keep it to just over 200 acres. We've got resources all across the state right now. Those aren't the only 2 fires burning in the state, but specifically for the Ferguson and the Carr, we do have strike teams from San Diego that are on both fires.
Today is the 30th, Monday, and it's with a heavy heart I report that Captain Brian Hughes of the Arrowhead Hotshots suffered a fatal injury yesterday in the line of duty after being struck by a tree while working the Ferguson fire.
And they're tragedy fires at this point. There 2 firefighters have been killed on the Ferguson fire. 2 firefighters have been killed on the Carr fire. So at this point, these fires are infamous for us. But not only infamous for us, they're infamous for the community too. Redding is paying a heavy price for those fires, and of course those families that are being left behind are paying a tragic price. The fires are getting bigger. That's very clear to see. You do not have to look too hard to recognize that fires are getting bigger. Fires are beginning to be more destructive, and they're beginning to be more frequent. And that certainly is a recipe for disaster, but it's one that we're certainly tackling head on at this point. We were all happy when the drought was declared over 2 winters ago, but as an industry and as an agency, we were seeing that there's going to be a flip side of that coin. That rain is very much needed. We appreciate it, but the other side of that coin is that there's going to be more grass and there's going to be more fuel. And even if the grass and the fuel dies and it doesn't burn, it's still out there. It doesn't just magically disappear. And so we're still dealing with heavy fuel loads. Now, the areas that have burned since the winter of 2016-17, obviously that fuel is going to regenerate and it'll grow back eventually. But everything that grew out there that didn't burn, it's still out there. And when we do get these fires, they're going to be bigger and they're going to be more destructive.
Flags are flying at half-staff today at the state capitol in honor of the firefighters that have been killed while working to contain the car fire. On his webpage, the governor said he and the First Lady are devastated and honor them and all first responders who are working day and night to protect life and property. The flags will remain lowered for 3 days. A trip to the California DMV is rarely something to look forward to, but recent reports show the wait times are getting worse by up to 46%. Lawmakers are planning to address that when they get back from break next week. The DMV says part of the problem is issuing real ID cards that all U.S. citizens will be required to have by 2020 in order to board a plane.
We implemented the Real ID program. We put in a new queuing system, and we also launched new electronic driver license and ID card application. All of those things together have increased wait times.
Officials are encouraging Californians to carefully read information on the DMV website before going to the office to make sure they have the proper paperwork. 2 legislative hearings on the DMV's funding and management are scheduled for next month. A historic museum in Balboa Park is preparing for a big change. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman tells us what's in store from the Museum of Man.
The Museum of Man is the first thing you see inside of Balboa Park, but that name won't be here for much longer. After 70 years, this museum is changing its name.
I don't know if a name change is needed, but I'm curious what other names people are thinking of.
Through a survey, the Museum of Man is asking people to vote on 5 different names. They include the Museum of Humankind, the Human Experience, the Museum of Many, the We, and One in all caps. We went to Balboa Park to see what visitors thought about the name possibly changing.
They're not jumping out at me. So far, I still like the Museum of Man.
Right.
Although I should say Mankind is probably a bit more fitting nowadays.
I understand some of those names, but I don't know. I don't really see a strong need to change it. I don't know. I'm not big into change. So once something is a way it is and it's branded, I feel like it's easier to sort of maintain a history.
When I was there, I thought it's only for men.
In Dutch language,
yes.
man means man. It's not humankind. So that's yeah.
So when you guys saw Museum of Man, you got literally like Museum of Males.
Yeah, that's true.
The Museum of Man says staff are searching for a name that better reflects the values of inclusivity, equity, and love. But this process will take a while. A spokeswoman for the museum says a new name won't be unveiled until 2020. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, fires in California. The death toll rises as the state deals with multiple spreading wildfires. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A bit of a break from the excessive heat today, but temperatures were still well above average. And there's a chance of pop-up thunderstorms in some parts of the county. Erin Calandra has the full forecast.
Well, happy Monday to you. I hope that the beginning of the work week started off just great. Taking a look at the satellite right now, really not much going on here in Southern California. It's pretty quiet. It is still monsoon season, and we are seeing some of that moisture further to the east. But San Diego County is staying pretty dry for the most part. Now, as far as temperatures, it's going to be getting warm. We have another warm pattern this week. For tonight, temperatures in Mount Laguna, 65. Could see a shower, perhaps a storm popping up there, but everyone else should stay nice and dry. Borrego Springs, 83. Ramona at 66. And San Diego sitting at 72 degrees. Now, that is awfully close to our average high for this time of year. So it's going to be a pretty warm night. And also, we'll see some of those low clouds breaking up for sunshine throughout the day. Tuesday is going to be a very dry day. Reduced air quality. If you have respiratory issues, it would be best to limit your outdoor activities on Tuesday. That high pressure system that's in place here, it is providing some hot air coming in from the south, so it's going to be cooking again in the deserts, especially those interior regions. San Diego is above average tomorrow at 82 degrees and sunny. Oceanside also at 82. Further interior, Ramona, 93. Mount Laguna, warm at 82. Could see a brief shower there. And Borrego Springs could see a shower as well. 109 for their high temperature. Over the next couple of days along the coast, we'll be cruising in those low 80s with partly cloudy skies with plenty of sun by the afternoon. In Lind, we're going to be warm in the 90s, a bit above average in spots with some sunshine, very warm conditions. Mountains, we'll see a couple of showers, perhaps storms popping up in places through Thursday, really, but then drier for the weekend, and our temperatures will be pretty steady in those low 80s. And in the deserts, triple digits for everyone all week. A shower or a storm around Tuesday, but then drier and sunnier conditions for the rest of the week. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Ebony, back to you.
An open government advocacy group has sued the San Diego County District Attorney's Office for records of sexual harassment and misconduct allegations within the department. iNews Source reporter Brad Racino has details.
The California-based First Amendment Coalition attempted this year to gather sexual harassment records from 7 of the state's largest district attorney offices. Coalition Executive Director David Snyder says the response he received from San Diego was unusual and troubling, and that the office provided a summary of its records, but not the records themselves. Citing case law, the San Diego DA's office says the employees involved in the sexual harassment and misconduct incidents do not occupy positions of such public trust and responsibility that the disclosure of their identities and disciplinary records would be required by law. Snyder, with the First Amendment Coalition, called the summaries untenable and dangerous under the state's public records law. The summaries describe 6 cases involving male employees at the office. Some made crude statements to female colleagues, others made unwelcome physical contact, and one deputy district attorney took nude photos on county property. A spokeswoman for the DA says the office takes all allegations of sexual misconduct seriously, moves quickly to investigate those claims, and takes disciplinary action when appropriate. In response to the lawsuit filed on Friday, the spokeswoman says the office is fully committed to transparency and has met its obligations under the state public records law. For KPBS, I'm iNews Source reporter Brad Racino.
To see the lawsuit and the summaries of the incidents, go to inewssource.org. iNews Source is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. Voters in San Diego will see 2 stadium-related initiatives this November. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says today the San Diego City Council voted to put 2 competing measures on the ballot.
Both the Soccer City and SDSU West initiatives had enough signatures to qualify for the November ballot. Each are aiming to buy city land in Mission Valley to be redeveloped for a new stadium. And today the San Diego City Council voted to put both on the November ballot. Today, Friends of SDSU, who is backing the SDSU West initiative, wanted the council to change language that would appear to voters in November. Lawyers were concerned with wording that says the Mission Valley site may include a new stadium with other uses and development. They wanted to change that to shall include a stadium and that the site will be bought at fair market value. But the city attorney's office says the way the initiative is written does not guarantee this. Friends of SDSU, though, disputes that interpretation.
And the initiative makes that incredibly clear that the university shall go through an open and transparent planning process and include a significant amount or a certain type of defined land uses. That includes academic space, that includes research space, a stadium, housing that's both affordable and market rate.
Soccer City, who has a competing stadium initiative, says hesitation from the city not to change the ballot language is telling.
What is clear, however, is that the language proposed by SDSU West today actually doesn't meet the facts, doesn't meet up with the facts. And this is why we're so excited to let the voters actually have a voice in November.
Now, aside from this, City Attorney Mara Elliott is seeking to have both the Soccer City and SDSU West initiatives removed from the November ballot. She's arguing both initiatives violate city charter and state law. Now, recently, courts have ruled in favor of the initiatives, but the City Attorney's Office says that it will appeal both decisions. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
KPBS is a service of San Diego State University. California's birth rate has dropped to a record low not seen since the mid-1970s. Experts say one reason might be the high cost of housing. As part of our statewide collaboration covering the California Dream, KPBS's Amita Sharma reports.
Angela George always thought she'd have 2 children by the age of 30. But when the 28-year-old nurse and her husband, a Marine, learned last year she was pregnant, they were thrilled and petrified.
We didn't plan for it, and we're like, oh my, what are we gonna do? We were thinking, well, how are we gonna care for the baby financially? How are we gonna afford daycare? It was just too much.
That worry is common among parents and wannabe parents in California.
We don't have enough kids.
Dowell Myers is a professor of urban planning and demography at USC.
We're actually losing children. The birth rate is below replacement level, only 1.76 babies per woman. You need 2.1 to break even.
While birth rates are dropping around the United States, California's are dipping more.
The major factor that makes California different is housing prices. There's really not much else that's that different.
And that, he says, is a problem.
Those kids are important for all of us because those are our future taxpayers and workers and home buyers. And if you don't have those kids, I mean, who's going to buy my house? Who's going to pay the taxes to support me in my old age?
He says potential parents are under a lot of pressure these days. They have to launch their careers, pay off massive student loan debts, meet a mate, pay an astronomical price for a home that usually requires 2 incomes to handle a mortgage and property taxes.
And we want them to have kids too? Now you're asking too much. So something has to go. And what gets put off and delayed is the kids.
As soon as Angela George found out she was having a baby, she and her husband looked for a house to buy.
For us, we felt like we had to get a home for him.
They wanted a home in San Diego County's Oceanside, close to their jobs, but prices were out of reach. They found a house they could afford nearly 30 miles away in Murrieta in Riverside County. She says houses there were significantly cheaper, but
that created a long commute for me and my husband, but again, another stressor.
And with a new baby, they have to pay for daycare, a cost she says will eat up more than half of her paycheck.
And childcare from 0 to 5 in Southern California is as high as your rent.
San Diego financial planner Anthony Ferreira says the total cost of raising a child from birth until the age of 18 is nearly $250,000. He estimates it's significantly higher in some parts of the state.
Because the cost of housing, the cost of food, the cost of gas, the cost of everything here is so much higher.
Angela George recently gave birth to a baby boy. She'd still like to have a second child, but financially doesn't see a way to do it. 2 kids in daycare would be akin to taking on a second mortgage.
We're really thinking we should just have one, just have him and keep it as that. It breaks my heart. It really does.
Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
That story is part of our statewide California Dream collaboration. You'll find more stories in that series at kpbs.org/California Dream. Graffiti can be more than writing on the wall. Midwest artist Adam Hernandez explores the connection between street art and ancient hieroglyphics. From WOSU Public Media, producer Jack Schaefer takes us inside his studio.
I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York. I moved to Columbus about 10 years ago. I'd like to describe my artwork as like ghetto hieroglyphics is the term that I've dubbed it. In my kind of philosophy is that graffiti and ancient hieroglyphics are kind of one and the same. So I incorporate elements of both, even though they're very stylistically different. I try to meld the 2 styles. I like to go out and use spray paint out on like abandoned places and stuff like that. I think that's really cool. I also like to make stickers out of like recycled like vinyl material. People throw out old like sticker scraps, and I like to paint on top of that and make my own stickers. I like to block print. incorporate a lot of herons and cranes, and in a lot of different mythologies, herons and cranes are like kind of symbols of like connectors between this world and like the world beyond. I also incorporate the thunderbird a lot. It's kind of the thing that I'm known for. And like thunderbirds are like really sweet, like Pacific Northwest Native American tribes incorporate the thunderbird a lot, and they're kind of like messengers from the gods. And they're like symbols of like power and something like, for myself personally, for a long time I wasn't the most self-confident person, so I've kind of taken the idea of the thunderbird, this really powerful, majestic beast, as a bit of a mascot, as something that I strive to be. So I kind of, as an artist, wanted to create my own mythology, but still reference the things that universally we all can relate to. We're distracted a lot by like social media, like we live in kind of a trying time right now. I think there's a lot of lessons we can learn from like ancient myth and stuff. People, we're kind of dumb. We do the same things over and over again. Hopefully soon here we'll learn our lesson and love each other a little more.
That story came to us from WOSU Public Media in Columbus, Ohio. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.